Are your mistakes keeping you trapped? Are you trapped by the mistakes of your past? Now, it's an interesting question, and it comes up for me because there's been a couple of things happen over the last few days. Listened to a few podcasts and read a really good book, Never Finished, by David Goggins. But it caused me to reflect on mistakes that have happened throughout my life. Now, our education system shows us or teaches us that mistakes are bad, right? We can't make a mistake. And even we're ridiculed for it when we're at school. If we put our hands up and we get the answer wrong on a question, and all of our peers, they give us a hard time. It makes you feel less than what you are. So where in your life are you avoiding making mistakes? Now, I might have said this before on a live, I may not have, but I remember back to when I was an apprentice mechanic, and I was rebuilding a engine for a high-ace van, for a Toyota high-ace van. And I might have been first or second year apprentice. So I wasn't that far into it, and probably should have still been pushing a broom on floors. However, I got to rebuild this engine by myself. But I was being supervised by an NCO, which was great, non-commissioned officer. However, I made a monumental fuck up on that. And that the way in which I marked one of the bearing caps for the conrods, I marked it on a machined face instead of a non-machined face to bring it together. Now, I got dressed down something chronic from my NCO, and I know I've definitely spoken about this before, about how I'd made the biggest mistake and this, that, the other, yada, yada, yada. And I remember going straight back to him. Realistically, I probably should have been charged for insubordination, but I wasn't. I went straight back to him and I had a go at him. And I said, well, if I'm not able to make any mistakes, how am I ever going to learn? If you're watching over my shoulder and not allowing me to make these mistakes, how am I ever going to learn? And that's something that's stuck with me for almost 30 years is I remember that very, very vividly of what happened and how it went down. So what I want to ask you is, what mistakes are you not willing to make? Because it's in our mistakes that we learn. It's in our mistakes that we take the lessons and are able to move forward. I remember when I lost everything in New Zealand and moved over here to Australia, I was able to do that, or what I've been able to do in my life is because of the mistakes that I made in that phase, because of the mistakes that I made getting into a franchise hair salon with a corrupt and ill-reputable franchisor, won't mention any names, by getting into a cafe and really not having any business there, but just thinking that I was a businessman and just a silent investor and not actually treating it like I should have been treating it. So I made mistakes in those things, making mistakes in my property and the way in which I was purchasing and managing it. Now, I lost all of those things. Yeah, cool, whatever, so what? Boo-hoo, poor me. No, that's not it at all. I learned massive lessons from that have allowed me now, when the inflow of money is coming into my life, to make better decisions. But I could not have got myself into a position like that without first owning and acknowledging those mistakes and saying, you know what, I needed to have those. They had to happen. That was part of my learning process. So don't get stuck by your mistakes. Don't get trapped by your mistakes. Allow your mistakes to be what they are and then learn from them so that you don't make the same ones in the future. Right? That's the key. Do something different moving forward. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that because, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not learning and you're not growing and you're never, ever going to succeed. So don't be afraid to fail. Get out and fail faster. Ka kite anō.